If you thought Apple was completely done shaking up the budget tech market after last month's massive announcements, you are absolutely, unequivocally dead wrong, Dostin. They are currently secretly engineering a brand new desktop computer behind closed doors in Cupertino that could legitimately cost less than a pair of high-end AirPods. The entire desktop market is about to change forever by something insiders are currently calling the Mac Neo. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind just a tiny bit to set the proper stage for what is coming. Just over a month ago, Apple shocked literally everyone when they introduced the MacBook Neo. It completely broke the internet because it finally gave us a premium full aluminum Apple laptop for just $599, or even cheaper if you happen to know a college kid and use that sweet education discount. People initially thought it was going to be a cheap, compromised piece of plastic, but it actually rocks a solid liquid retina display, a premium keyboard, and a fantastic trackpad. But the absolute real magic was hidden inside the chassis. That budget laptop runs on the highly efficient A18 Pro chip. Yes, that is essentially the exact same silicon brain powering the ridiculously expensive iPhone 16 Pro models. The single-core performance on that cheap laptop is literally matching the premium M3 and M4 MacBook Airs. It is totally insane, and the multi-core speeds are actively beating the legendary M1 chips, even with a slightly reduced 5-core GPU. So industry insiders and veteran tech analysts started asking a very obvious question. What if Apple took that exact same magic chemistry, ripped away the expensive screen, removed the premium keyboard, ditched the trackpad, and stuffed the raw hardware into a tiny desktop box? Well, sach batonto, that is exactly what the Mac Neo is going to be. According to reliable sources, this is going to be the absolute ultimate budget desktop experience. Think of it as the Mac Mini's much smaller, much more affordable little brother. Because Apple does not have to pay the hefty manufacturing costs for a built-in battery or a high-resolution display, the price tag on this thing is going to be absolutely historic. We are talking about a rumored starting price of just $399, and if you qualify for that education discount, you could potentially snag a brand new Apple desktop for $299. Let that sink in for a second. Normally, Apple charges you $300 just for a set of stainless steel wheels for a Mac Pro, but now you're getting an entire computer. You might assume it is just going to be an underpowered toy meant for toddlers, but the leaks say otherwise. Let's separate the real leaks from the noise here. Since this little beast is currently scheduled to launch around the spring of 2027, it will likely skip the current A18 chip entirely and jump straight to the brand new A19 processor. It is also heavily rumored to pack 12 GB of RAM right out of the box. Now, Apple will probably bend down the GPU slightly to 5 cores to keep production yields high and costs in check. But even with a 5-core GPU and a 6-core CPU, this thing will absolutely fly through daily tasks. You guys are experienced, tech-savvy professionals, so I know you do deep research before buying expensive gadgets and you hate cheap hype. So let me give it to you straight. For running massive Excel spreadsheets, managing a Plex media server, or doing light photo editing, this A19 chip will barely even break a sweat. Now I know exactly what some of you are shouting at your screens right now. You are leaning back in your Herman Miller chair saying, hey, isn't a tiny Apple box that connects to a screen just an Apple TV? It is a super fair question, but the answer is a massive no. This strategy is completely different, and what's interesting here is how Apple is positioning this device to cannibalize their own low-end market. An Apple TV usually runs on older silicon, like an A19 chip, and it is totally locked down by the incredibly restrictive TV OS. The Mac Neo, on the other hand, is going to run a full unrestricted version of macOS. You can download whatever third-party software you want, run real desktop applications, browse the full desktop web without mobile site limitations, and use it as a legitimate workstation. Plus, people are absolutely going to buy this thing just to plug it directly into their living room televisions to create the ultimate media and retro gaming emulation center. It essentially kills the need for a high-end Apple TV entirely. Sacho Zara, why buy a restricted streaming box when you can have a full-fledged computer for nearly the same price? Speaking of plugging things in, let's talk about the hardware I/O and ports, because this is where the real compromises happen. Because it is a highly budget-focused device, Apple is definitely going to cut some strategic corners here to protect their precious profit margins. Do not expect crazy fast Thunderbolt 5 connections on this machine. The rumors point to a very specific and basic setup. On the front of the device, you will likely get 2 standard USB Type-C ports for quick access. On the back, they are keeping it super practical for everyday users. We are expecting a standard gigabit Ethernet port for stable internet, because back in the early days of broadband, we learned the hard way that Wi-Fi can be a fickle friend. You will also get 2 more USB Type-C ports that will probably be limited to standard USB 3 or even slower USB 2 speeds, a classic headphone jack, and most importantly, a dedicated HDMI port. Those of us who remember the Nokia 3310 era know the value of hardware that just works without a dozen adapters. That single HDMI port is exactly why this machine is going to sell millions of units. You can literally plug it into any cheap budget monitor or old television you have lying around the house without buying annoying, overpriced Apple dongles. Oh, and it actually gets better because this is officially part of the new Neo lineup. Apple is reportedly planning to release the Mac Neo in multiple fun, vibrant colors. You will not be stuck with just boring silver or standard corporate space gray. We are talking about deep blues, vibrant greens, and maybe even a throwback orange. It reminds me of the time we first saw the original iPhone in 2007, or even further back to the original iMac G3 days when tech actually had some personality. When you put all this data together, a full aluminum desktop running a next-generation A19 Pro-level architecture with 12 gigs of unified memory and full macOS for roughly $300, it honestly sounds like a pipe dream. But Apple already proved they can execute this exact formula with the MacBook Neo. They have the supply chain dominance to actually pull this off. This could actually matter because it completely lowers the barrier of entry into the Apple ecosystem for millions of people. Once you buy the cheap desktop, you're more likely to buy the iPhone and then the Apple Watch, and suddenly you're paying for iCloud storage every month. It is a brilliant long-term play. So I have to throw the question over to you guys. Would you actually buy a Mac Neo for $299? Would you use it as a reliable, cheap home office computer for web browsing and managing your digital life? Or would you hook it up straight to your living room TV as a dedicated, overpowered media center? Let me know all your honest thoughts, technical theories, and crazy setup ideas down in the comments below. I read as many as I can, and I love seeing what you guys come up with. And hey, if you want to stay updated the absolute second more credible leaks drop about the entire Neo lineup, make sure you hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. It helps out the channel immensely. Stay safe out there, keep your tech running smooth, and I will catch you guys in the next video.